We got a big Habs roster update as Juraj Slafkovsky has made his way back to the top line as we all hoped and waited for. We got to break into that and the decision behind it. Plus, a lot of Habs fans are worried because Arber Xhekaj was not skating with the regular defenseman today as he was an extra. Is he going to lose his permanent spot? There's a lot to discuss. That plus more on this episode of Habs Digest. But before we get into the video, this video is sponsored by Rentals.ca. Moves are coming, and a lot of moves have come with Sean Monahan getting moved. Jake Allen rumors are coming out left and right, and fans have been waiting for Hughes to make some more shakeups. And if you feel like the Habs and need some extra excitement in your life, then it's time to move, and Rentals.ca has you covered. Rentals.ca is Canada's largest apartment hunting network. You can rent houses, apartments, condos, whatever it is.
Coast to coast. One of the best things about Rentals.ca is their website is really clean. It's really easy to use. As you can see, you can choose the city of your liking. Then not just that, find the neighborhood of your liking, really get to see it through detailed maps and find great listings just right there.
Yeah, 100%. Shout out to Rentals.ca. As you guys know, they are supporters of the channel. They are big Habs fans, and they've been helping us out for a long time. So if it's time to move for you and you're looking for your next place, check out Rentals.ca in the pinned comment or description down below. Jesse, the first thing I wanted to get into is a little board that's quite revealing for some stats for the Montreal Canadiens. And I'll show this on the screen. And as always, feel free to pause to take a look at this because there's a lot of info to digest here. That's what we do here at this show. But we're just gonna flash it up. There's a lot of numbers. There's a lot of everything. Take your time. Breathe this in. We can't possibly go through everything, but there's a few things that we wanted to speak about. So feel free to come back to this timestamp and have a look as we discuss it. But Jesse, the first thing I wanted to mention is Cole Caufield. You look at his 5v5 usage. He's second on the team. His expected defense is extremely high, and his on-ice goaltending is very, very high, essentially implicating that when Cole Caufield's out there, the team doesn't get scored on that much. The team's defense does well, and he's still one of our best offensive players. I was quite impressed by his board here.
Very impressive considering he's playing against a lot of the best opposition, from the other team. So the fact, again, of what really stands out here is offensive numbers being very good, but the defensive numbers especially. And, that's just so great considering that this is something that he's wanted to work on this year. And I think for him, it's been a balance of kind of not losing his identity, but still just becoming that more complete player, which he can, implicating himself more, going to the front of the net. And he's really getting rewarded. And I think the team's definitely a lot better for that as well.
Yeah, 100%. And again, I don't know if I said it. This is 5v5 stats only, so this doesn't include power play, penalty kill. But one of the other guys, Jesse, we had to mention is Brendan Gallagher. Now, if you look, we're going to flash it up again, might as well. It'll make it easier for you guys and us. If you look at his luck percentage, it's in the 9th percentile in the NHL. He's one of the unluckiest players in the NHL, and his expected offense is in the 91st percentile, but his actual offense is only in the 14th, and his line mate finishing is extremely low as well. Jesse, once again, Gallagher's his 5v5 expected numbers are so high, but his line mates can't finish, and he has one of the worst luck ratings in the NHL. What does it take for the turn around for him? Because it feels like the same story every year. He's just extremely unlucky.
Well, those are the type of stats that you're going to get if you're there right in front of the net, whacking away at it. And if you're not able to bury it, right? We've seen, obviously, he's been able to score there, at the beginning of the season a little bit, but he's kind of cooled off from there. So obviously not the best right now. And it's kind of unfortunate because obviously we miss him so much with the recent trade to Sean Monahan. With the suspension, this is a very young team without him. So we definitely, we need his efforts all the same because we know he can do it. He's right there. But, speaking of guys that have some, pretty good numbers, for expected offense, is Juraj Slafkovsky. That's who really kind of stands out for me. Not only his 5v5 usage, but also his expected offensive numbers there, only behind vets like Gallagher, Matheson, Monahan, who we'd kind of expect for these type of things. In terms of that, it's him and Newhook are tied for expected goals for. Of course, with Newhook, he would like to have a little bit more of a sample size, but I think that kind of fits the eye test for Slaf, right? Like we see him getting those opportunities more than what he kind of puts in the back of the net, but we're seeing him start to do that a lot more. So what I expect to see from this expected goals for is definitely those stats translating into points for him in the very near future.
Very soon, and now that he's back in the top line, like we're going to talk about a bit later, they're going to come in bunches. And again, the start of the season wasn't great. This is cumulative, and I'm sure if you just looked at recent numbers, it'd be a lot better. And guys, of course, we can't talk about everything on this list. David Savard being the worst defensive player on this team is something that probably needs to be mentioned, but we're not going to break it down. Go look at those numbers. Not great. But one guy too, Jesse, that has a really high expected defense is Arber Xhekaj. He is, by all the metrics in this, maybe the best defensive player on the team, but we got a bit to talk about with him because in practice today, he was not skating with the regular defensemen. As Anthony Montembeault tweeted out, the defensive pairs this morning were Matheson, Guhle, going back to that, interesting. Struble, Savard, Harris, Kovacevic, with Xhekaj being the extra, but he does note that Xhekaj was taking reps with the second power play, so he could play versus Washington. We now know that Sam Montembeault, I believe that's who it is, getting the start. But Arber Xhekaj, Jesse, to me, when I see he's not skating with the regulars, yeah, he got the power play reps. Maybe they just haven't made up their mind yet, and they just wanted to skate all 7 guys. Maybe they're going to go with 11 forwards and 7 defensemen. Because, a second line of Pearson, Evans, and Ullinen, yes, that's the real second line, is maybe not great. Of course, with Newhook not playing yet. There's a lot of stuff going on, but to me, like, to see him not have an actual defensive partner at practice, and I want to say it's worrying, but I think it kind of upset me. I wanted to see him as, like, a guaranteed guy, maybe second pairing in the first game back from the All-Star break. Maybe that's asking too much.
I'm surprised to see Jordan Harris above him, in the depth chart right now as well. It is surprising, kind of since coming back. There's been a little bit of that tough love. It's kind of went up and down. He's been, there to realize that maybe he has taken a couple penalties. Like his game hasn't been perfect since being very hot in Laval. But Arber Xhekaj knows what he needs to work on. Make no mistake about this. And for sure, he's going to need to fight to make his place on this team. But if there's one thing that Arber Xhekaj is really good at, it's fighting.
Yeah, it is. And he's fought back, whether it's, with his fists or with his game and Laval, all this kind of stuff. And I know he's going to do it. He clearly has the mindset to do it. But yeah, at the same time, it's a bit strange. But I did also like seeing him back on the second power play. Of course, we've seen some rotating power play guys. We've seen Matheson. We've on the first, obviously, pretty much all year. We've seen Guhle run a bit of that second power play. We saw Barron when he was up with the team. Do you think like a long-term solution could be Xhekaj on the second power play with that heavy shot and that knack of getting the puck to the net?
With who we have coming up, it's looking like some very, very tight competition for that. So that place might be kind of going away from him. But as far as, the numbers showing him being such a strong defensive player, I'd like to just see his 5v5 usage. I still think he can be a top 4, and definitely, at least, a top 6 defenseman with the big club, absolutely. But just with his physicality, how big he is, like, I'm almost not surprised to see those numbers, even though that's a part of his game that he was sent to Laval to work on with, like, being so big, being so physical. He can move guys from the front of the net, right? Those were a lot of those battles are really won and lost. And that's where Arber Xhekaj exceeds. And that's why Hughes knows this and why he's such an important part of this team going forward. So I really think they're giving him a little bit of tough love, but I think he's going to work out all the better for it in the future.
I think so too. Give him some tough love. He has to work his butt off. I know he can do it. Hoping to see him be resilient, hoping to see him play a lot more as the season goes on. And just like this guy, it's official. Again, it's Juraj Slafkovsky, and a lot of you guys probably know this. I made the community post earlier today. You guys all know it happened. We gotta talk about it. I mean, we can't just not talk about it. Caufield, Suzuki, Slav, as Eric Engels tweets out, as I retweeted on the Habs Digest Twitter. Go follow Habs Digest on Twitter, at Habs Digest. But this is phenomenal. Now, also he notes that Newhook won't play versus Washington, but will travel with the Montreal Canadiens, which is really good news. But the lines today were all over the place. We got Condata, Gignac, and Anderson as the third line with Pearson, Evans, and Ullinen as the second. It's borderline worse than any lineup we saw last year. But regardless, the top line's set in stone again, Jesse, and it only makes sense. With Monahan gone, where else would you put Slav? I wasn't so sure that we were going to see Slav back on the top line just because of him. Like, I don't know. I just felt like there was no reason to take him away before, but I'm just so relieved to see this again. And I really think that come the next few weeks, we're going to start seeing him picking up his production even more.
Absolutely. Back on the top line where he deserved. And I'm just wondering if this is all kind of part of Marty's plan. Was it to kind of see that he could maybe drive a line on his own, right? Because if you're able to do that, and then you now come onto a line with 2 very skilled players in Nick Suzuki and Cole Caufield, I think that says a lot, because a lot of the time it seems like Juraj Slafkovsky almost isn't taking enough ownership on that first line for how good he can be, right? But I mean, when you're playing with guys like Nick Suzuki, the captain of the team, Cole Caufield, proven goal scorer in this league, you get where your eyes coming from. Okay, you want to show respect, you want to make sure they're getting the biscuit when they need it. But I mean, it's maybe a time for him to kind of realize this next step in his development, which is a huge one, that he can drive a line, whether it's a second line or maybe in this case a first line, right? So it's all about him just kind of putting it together. I feel that this line's going to be even better this time around.
Yeah, like when he was there with Monahan and Armia, those every time they played, it was only a couple game sample size, but they always had an incredible expected goals for share, like Corsi, this kind of stuff, like advanced metrics, but also with the eye test. Like when they were out there, you don't need advanced stats to tell, holy crap, that line was really dominating. And Slaf was one of the big driving forces of it. And he's really starting to come into his own with carrying the puck as well, something that he was really nervous to do in his first season. Didn't really start this season doing it that much, but now it just feels like he's got the confidence to take it and go up ice, whether it's against the Penguins, spinning away from Crosby, deking in and almost scoring an overtime winner, to just going along the boards, poking it past, kind of trying to deck a guy as he moves in. I feel like that kind of stuff is really going to help. Like, again, like I hate to keep comparing him to Dach because, again, they're very different players, but that's kind of the stuff Dach brought when he was playing on that first line, like this dump in game and really getting physical along the boards, making the right passes. But also his ability to break into the zone on his own. So it wasn't just Suzuki. And I think alleviating some of that load could be really good. And I don't know. I feel like I have more high hopes than ever. We're going to break this out. Slapzilla again, Jesse. I really think, I don't know. Let's say, how many points per game do you think he'll score the rest of the way? Do you think he'll be like a half point per game guy, like 40-point pace kind of guy the rest of the way? Or do you think he can maybe even do something more special than that?
It's a great question. He's definitely just getting better and better as the season goes on. Being on that first line, you have to feel like it's going to help. I feel like being a half point per game player right now would be great.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, it's really about the all around game for Slaf. It's
100%.
about winning those puck battles, everything else affecting the game, on both sides of the ice, So, I expect big things for him. He's really doing great. If he can get over possibly like that, let's say 17, crack the 20 goal mark, that would just absolutely be phenomenal for Slav. So, I think he should aim for the stars because he can do it.
Yeah, he can, and it'll be coming in the future. Yeah, it's amazing. What do you guys think about Slav being on the top line again? I'm sure a lot of you are excited. What are your thoughts about Xhekaj? I hope he's a regular, but as of late, it doesn't really seem that he has that spot locked up. So we'd love to hear from you about all that stuff in the comment section down below, because for now, that'll do it for this episode of Habs Digest. If you enjoyed, leave a like, comment, subscribe to the channel, and check out rentals.ca, the sponsor of this episode. I'm Josh Gosse, my co-host, Jesse Poirier. We'll catch you in the next one.